unless you're pushing with your head. Yes? Yep. So should is a tricky word, isn't it? My sister, who's a teacher, says we should stop shoulding on ourselves. Like, don't should on yourself. It's a good life lesson. They can. Yeah. They can be engaged. Yes, it would make sense for them to be engaged. If people don't, they might have a very good reason why not. They might just have had a cesarean section. It would be a very good idea to not engage them, to move the chest if you've just had a C-section. So yes, that would be it would be something that they're quite good at doing. But that, you know, there'll be reasons for not. Some people can't engage them without freezing their diaphragm. So they're not differentiated from the diaphragm. I'm a little bit echoey. Is that because I'm too close to me? Is that better? Yeah. It would be something that we would look for. Then we would get curious if they weren't engaging. We would get curious. Any other questions about what you observed or didn't observe? Yes. Oh. Were you sleeping?
When I was doing it myself, I didn't notice this so much, but the point to where they meet, sort of as they're coming together, that became very clear when we were touching each other, and then I got more interested in is it into a point in the middle, or is it?
Could be.
Like
it could be.
Yeah, it was different for them, but it was
He talks about that kind of meeting point a little bit, and then conversely, he talks about the bit that gets the longest at the back. So that might have a relation to somebody as well, that they might really feel where things maximally move apart at the back. He went into great detail on some of that. Could you imagine how long his ATM went for? If mine went for over an hour and he went into more detail, think yourself lucky that I'm so brief. Danielle?
I think it was really fascinating to see how curious and detailed and involved you could be with doing what somebody from the outside might just think was almost nothing.
Yes.
So the increasing complexity, the more that you look, the more you see, kind of thing. So I think it seemed like a very small thing that you asked us to do, but it felt like we could go on. We could have gone on.
Yeah, it's complex. Simple can become complex. So I find this really interesting. So that lesson gets really into detail, and who really freaks out with detail? Oh, the only people, honest people. No, I don't freak out anymore either. I just pretend I don't freak out, but I've just managed to hide it better. So some people love going deeper and deeper into detail, and some people get really lost in it, and they just have to step back and see the kind of gestalt thing, like they're the big picture, you know, that sort of so-called I'm a big picture person, I'm a details person. So it's really interesting. This occurred to me last week too, is often during a training program you start exposing those kinds of self-image statements like, well, I don't do detail, I'm a big picture person, or what's another one? I don't do flexion exercise, flexion lessons very happily. Or, you know, what are some of the self-image comments you have? Well, I'm a ... Right? Like I am naturally quiet, or I am naturally spontaneous, or I'm creative, or I'm not creative, or because someone told me off when I was drawing, doodling as a kid, so therefore I'm not, whatever. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? These self-talk, self-images things. Because it popped out a little bit when you were teaching ATM last Wednesday. I was actually going to challenge you about that and invite you to play around with the other end of, if you are at one end of a spectra like that, like I I freak out at details. Well, actually, I don't. That's a bullshit thing. I don't. But I still say it, right? You catch yourself with these self-talk things. Am I making any sense? Because I'm not getting a lot of, okay.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Excellent. Yeah, you're so quiet today that I'm just sort of talking to very still bodies. I encourage you to spend this week, seeing as our, kind of one of our meta themes is this sort of equipoise thing, is could you play with the other end of one of your spectra? Like some people have, I'm not very bright, or I'm not very good with theory, or I'm very intellectual, I'm not very good with the experience, or what are some of the other dichotomies that you've launched yourself into? I'm hopeless with ... I'm
hopeless with numbers.
There you go. Could you contemplate being good with numbers so turn everything into percentages of everything else?
Yes.
You see what I mean? Just challenge these assumptions, because they're self-imposed assumptions. It's not like society told me that I was bad at detail. Actually, if you ask my colleagues at home, they'd say, oh, Susan, she's a really bad timekeeper. She's always late. Have you noticed I am nailing it every time, apart from last week. One session went a bit long. So you can challenge these things. And anyone got anything, if you've got something that you would like to play with in this environment of challenging our self-image in a friendly, curious way?
I'm a bit challenged on the idea of memory.
Memory, yeah? Oh, I've got a hopeless memory. So actually, do you know what? I'm really shit at names. But am I good at names in here? Yes, because I did something about it. So you're going to have you feel like you've got a bad memory?
Yes. I do.
For what? Yeah.
Well, for certainly names, and then that means names of bones or
names of birds.
Bones. So
okay.
I do actually know these things. It's the retrieval. Can't actually remember what.
Okay.
It was.
Could you think of a little game to play around bones?
Find some mnemonics, but yeah, any tips like that I'd be very glad of.
You know what helped me with anatomy is I got interested in Latin. And I didn't study Latin, but I got interested in Latin. And that piqued my curiosity about what it means. Like clavicle means key. And I think, what is that about the functionality of the clavicle? It's a key. It turns things, right? It opens up the shoulder. Lovely.
I like that.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So there's lots of things like that in the Latin. So get interested in the Latin. So humorous is obvious. It's funny. Funny ha-ha or funny queer would be the hillier question. As kids, we always had to know if something was funny ha-ha or funny queer. Yeah, now it's peculiar. You can't say queer. Back then it was just queer, like odd. Anybody else? You got a challenge? The box.
Yeah, mine was pretty simple actually. I picked this up before I came. I've had this thing for years. Like our family doesn't hug.
Doesn't hug.
I know it probably doesn't fit in with the thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not a hugger.
You don't. Yeah. You don't.
So
hug.
Coming down here, my theme was that when I say hello to people I'm going to meet, and my mate, when I saw them, I hugged. So my theme for coming to Australia was hugging.
Hugging. Beautiful. How do you get on at the Woolies checkout?
They weren't so good with it. I don't know why. She said, cash or card? And I said, cash. And she said, hug? That one's open. And I gave her a hug, and she wasn't very happy.
Timing is everything.
I just said thank you and hugged her.
Thank you. Yes, tonus.
It was a little stiff, I have to say. Yeah. Very boardy.
Boardy. Yeah, as not as in B-A-W-D-Y, but B-O-A-R. All right, yeah, so it's very, someone with a lot of extensor tone, it's very hard. It's hard to hug. I'm not saying you've got a lot of extensor tone, but, if you watch something, if you don't want to be hugged, what do? You might not, because for women, you might not, because that kind of... Anybody else got a little challenge? Are you up for it? All right. Sorry? Are you up for this challenge? You're going to play with one of your little commentaries. You all picked one? Some people are still thinking about their eyes are going, like this.
What if I fail?
What if you fail? Well, it doesn't matter because we won't know. Will we? You know, we don't know. All right. Line your back. I was laughing with Ruth. This is the next in the series, in this Amherst sequence. And it's